Welcome back to WagerTalk.com. This is the video Best Bets Part 2. In an earlier video, you got a best bet from both Scott Spreitzer and Ralph Michaels. You're going to get 3 in this one from Preston, Bryan, and myself. Bryan, we're going to start with you. You're on Friday night. You've got an NBA game, and you're looking at the Utah Jazz and Washington, and this will be a second opinion on this one. We'll find out if you agree with Scott or not. Who are you looking at?
Yeah, it's a great situational spot here for Utah. Usually when a team goes on the West Coast and they're on an extended string, you can usually find one game where they're looking at themselves and thinking, okay, this is a game we can relax. Well, that was supposed to have been a Lakers game on Tuesday night, and they had to come back, a huge comeback to come back and win that game. Then they got to play the Clippers. They just played Cleveland in a show-me game earlier. I think that was our video last week. We had a nice winner on that one. But then after this, they've got Golden State on deck. So you've got to figure it's going to be a tough situation for them to go into Utah here in altitude with Golden State on deck. This is their 4th game in a 5-game road trip. And if you're Utah, just take a look at the games they have to end the regular season here. They play the Spurs twice, they play the Warriors, and they play the red-hot Portland Trail Blazers. So if there's one game they need to have, this is the game here against a tired Washington team. I expect this line probably be in the 5.5 range, something like that. As long as it's 6.5 or less, I'll be on Utah on this one.
Yeah, and it's also the Jazz. You don't have to worry about them resting. Well, I can't even say that anymore in the NBA about teams resting players, but they are in a dogfight with the Clippers, trying to hold off the Clippers for the 4th seed, which is the important spot for home court in the first round. Heading to Saturday for your free pick, you're going to go to the Oregon-North Carolina game. We talked about that one in another video, but you're going a different direction as far as your best bet. Tell us about it.
Yeah, most likely going to lay the side aside and not bet it. I like the total, though. I didn't when it opened at 148. Now it's up to 152, which I think is too high. I think 148 is actually right where my number was, and that was if they just met blindly, you know, in a game during the regular season. I think I'm a proponent. Maybe it's because I grew up playing basketball a lot. I still play, but when you go into those huge arenas with the Final Four one's going to be the worst of the tournament. It's going to be really hard to shoot there. You'll see, if you follow first half versus full game totals, you'll notice generally the first half's inflated to slightly more than half of the full game total. Right now it's 152 the first half. You're thinking, okay, 76, 77, it's 71. So they've deflated it 5 points because it is really hard to get accustomed to shooting in those spots. I'm going to be on the under now. I'm just kind of waiting for it to see how high it's going to peak because it seems like everyone's just betting the over right now. I'll probably end up actually splitting it and betting half of my money on the first half and half of it on the full game, just kind of limit the variance there. But these are two teams, I think people always think North Carolina's a run, push-it team that goes crazy. They're 66th in possessions per game in the country. They don't actually run that fast, and they've had to slow down a lot. We talked about the Barry injury on that video covering this game, which I think is pretty evident. They're slowing the game down even more because of that ankle and now 2 ankles that he's dealing with. And Oregon, they're like 240th in pace, and I think people get confused or deceived because they're so athletic. They can keep up with anybody, and when they do get turnovers, they'll push it. They actually play a very slow game, and so I'm shocked to see this number move up 4 points and maybe more, and so I'm likely going to be on under around the 152, hopefully even higher, and then that 71-ish for the first half.
To add real quick to your first half, a wager spot on with about the arenas and the sight lines and getting used to that. But also, you have a tendency when you have these big games, and this being the first of the Final Four, teams are a little bit tight coming out. And so, you know, you're playing tight. You know, you have those first couple minutes where you get the scoring slowed way down. Definitely a help for you with the under with that. So I can't say I disagree. I agree with you on that one. I'm going to go for a total as well. I'm going to go full game on the total that I'm using, and I'm going to go to the first game of the Final Four, or the other game, I should say, in the South Carolina Gonzaga. I'm looking at this one at the 138.5. I like the under in this one, and you look at it, we talked about whenever Ralph and Scott and Bryan, you guys did that first video about how good the defenses of both teams are. They are. There's no question about it. And what I like about it is you got 2 good defenses. Not only do you got 2 good defenses, But South Carolina, they don't take a lot of shots. They do play at that slower pace. You look at their last 5 games, they've taken 49, 67, 63, 50, and 53 shots. Now, Gonzaga, on the other hand, talked about being a more up-tempo team. But if you go to the last 4 games, which have been more meaningful, you've gotten out of the conference play and into the tournament, this team, they have slowed their pace down in going back the last 7, which would take you to the final couple games of the conference tournament. They're averaging 54.8 shots per game. So they have slowed their pace down themselves. So if you got 2 teams that are slower pace and great defensive, there's not going to be a lot of scoring and a lot of scoring opportunities. I like this one under the 138.5. I think it's just too high. I'm taking the under in this one.
Yeah, if you watch Gonzaga this year, they would run and gun against the weaker teams. They haven't run into the weaker teams on this tournament. And our friend right here, Cheetah's been very low-key, but he's playing a hell of a series there for Gonzaga. I mean, you guys.
He clogs up the middle, doesn't he? Every time when I'm watching the Gonzaga game, I just laugh, and I want to tweet it out. But you're playing some good basketball in the middle there, and no question about that. And the one other thing that I'll say about Gonzaga is they have held their last 5 opponents to 36% or less shooting. The one game that they didn't was against Northwestern, and if you remember that game, they had a huge lead in that game, and it's kind of like Gonzaga took their foot off the gas a little bit because they didn't seem to have that same intensity in the second half defensively that they did in the first half, and Northwestern started hitting everything they started putting up and made it a little close game late. So that's the only game that they did allow more than 36% from the field. So there you have it. You've got Bryan with the Jazz on Friday. You got Preston first half under Oregon, North Carolina, and I am taking the under in South Carolina Gonzaga for our 3 best bets. Hopefully we bring you a 3-0 sweep with those. And guys, don't forget, if you want to check out the Weekend All Access, it's the best still going, guys. You can pick up Thursday through Sunday for $59. Pick your favorite capper, get all of his plays through Sunday. That includes any 5% plays that they have. All one price, $59. It's the best way to get everything at a reasonable price. Check it out each week at wagertalk.com. We'll be back with more.